We're live. Oh my god, we're live. Hello, welcome everybody to another episode of your average esports podcast. My name is Skim. I'm your host for today, and I'm glad to be back. We've taken, what, a 3-week pause or something, I think? I don't know. It's just, yeah, we're way too casual with this, but you know, it's just still a lot of fun. So we'll keep doing at it. I'm, as always, joined by Steven. Thank you, Steven, for joining me. Otherwise, that would be a very boring show, honestly. We have a lot to talk about after all. I mean, again, we haven't done this in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I don't know. So let's just immediately catch up with the news. And you know, I keep joking about this because we talk about this so much. So we might actually really do an Overwatch section at some point, a regular Overwatch section. But Overwatch League is a big news topic in esports, so it's worth talking about for sure. There's been a couple of Overwatch League news. If you're not following the Overwatch League, it's like the big, supposedly global league organized by Blizzard for their Overwatch game. They're gonna franchise it, so you know, teams are gonna share revenues together from broadcasting and stuff, and they have to pay slots to get into the league. And now there's been a major announcement being made. 3 new locations have been added, and they're gonna cut it off at the 12-team limit. So there's 12 teams now. 3 teams have been added: Philadelphia, Dallas, and Houston. And the league is basically done. It's gonna start, or not done, but you know, gathering the teams has been done, and now league, or the preseason, is gonna kick off in December. First of all, Steven, is it still fair to call it a global league, considering there's like 9 US teams in those 12 teams?
No, you can't call it a global league because, like, how the fuck would you call it a global league? What the fuck is that? You can't call that a global league in any sense of the word. Just because there's 2 ways you can split it up, right? You can split it up by org. Most of the orgs are all US based, so that doesn't make sense. You can split it up by player, I guess. And as far as I can tell, like, it's not nearly like international enough to be called a truly global league in any sense of the word. Just because a majority of the Asian teams are still in Asia, like all of SEA, all of China, almost all of Korea. Like, yeah, you got the best teams out of Korea, but I'll go ahead and say this: I'm not sure what they're thinking about that, but if they think those three Korean teams they have right now will stay the best, that's going to be very unlikely. I'll bet in 1 year's time, 3 new teams will have risen in Korea that'll be better. That will be either comparable or better, like at least one of them will be.
Pretty much. And the funny thing is, you know, the one European slot that they do have is also owned by a North American-based organization, so...
Yeah, not Fnatic. Rest in peace.
Exactly. This is totally bonkers. This is definitely not a global league by any sense of the definition of the word, but... yeah, it's still, you know, finally we have our roundup of teams. I think this is something that a lot of people have been waiting for, because... The Overwatch League, I think initially people expected this to start much sooner, and they're like pretty much
Q3.
Exactly, and then now they're pretty much starting at the end of the year. Literally, I think 6th of December is it? I'd have to look.
Technically, till 2017.
Technically,
still 2017.
You know, they could have also done the. Oh yeah, 6th of December is gonna. That's where it kicks off the preseason at least, and the inaugural season kicks off January. You know what they could have done is done the whole Valve thing and go, you know, start in January and called it like the 48th of December. Haha, we're funny, except we're also pretty late.
And we're terrible.
And we're terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, the spots are owned by NVS, which was very much to be expected. Optic Gaming and... What was the other one? The other one I didn't know... Oh, the Philadelphia Flyers. No, wait.
What?
Somebody that owns the Philadelphia Flyers. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it was like the pro hockey team, right?
Comcast Spectator, that's what they're called. Comcast Spectator. Sounds pretty cool.
I should point out, this might be a terrible idea for Comcast. Because if you think about an esports tournament, no matter how good you run the tournament, there will inevitably be internet issues.
Yes.
Do you really want to connect that to? I'm just saying.
Yes.
It seems like a dangerous prospect.
Yes. But yeah, it's great to have Optic and NVS in. I think, you know, I mean, when the first time all the like high prizes for the buy-ins were announced, a lot of people were skeptical whether there would be any actual esports brands represented in the league, right? A lot of people expected, big companies to come in, and this still happens because a lot of these esports brands can only afford the buy-ins because they are now working together with some sort of investor, like NFL teams or whatever, or NBA teams or whatever. So, but still, in a sense, it's great to have these brands in here because there's there's going to be recognition. Just kidding, no brand recognition, because that's the next topic. Overwatch or Blizzard forces them to have a new brand, so you can't call them the Dallas Envious or Dallas Envious. No, they literally have to come up with a new brand. Which, though, to be fair, obviously everybody knew going in. Like, when you sign your contract, you definitely know that this is going to be the case. Blizzard just didn't dump this onto them afterwards. But still, kind of weird, right? Why would you... Like, you already have only very few esports brands present, and then you're going to make them, like, lose their brand identity and change it to something else?
Let me think about this. How do I say this delicately? Basically, if you've ever been to preschool or kindergarten, what you've learned there is basically applicable to all of politics, politics. Basically, what happened was the sports teams came in. They're like, "Man, that's not fair. Those esports guys, they already have brands. This ain't fair." And Blizzard's like, "What can we do to solve this? Make them restart." I was like, "Okay." And like, what the fuck? Are you okay with this? This is so weird, and this is also why I think a bunch of the other esports teams that could have bought in, like Liquid could have bought in for sure. Looks like they were even on the verge to. But the fact that you have to restart your brand is like something really fucking weird. And the only good argument for it is that, it gives the sports teams a bit of an extra edge, but that nobody cares. Like if you're gonna like build it up, just build it up. Like, I don't know why you need to reset everybody else. At the same time, it's also weird that there's only that the COD teams have decided to buy in, I guess. Yeah. Just because it felt like they were holding on at the very end, but I'm not exactly sure what they're thinking either. I feel like a lot of these, because if you just look at the overall money that's being put into this, none of it is like what you would call old money, which can sometimes be like correlated to smart money. Right. If you get what I mean.
No, I do.
Like, it's not always the case, but a majority of the older brands are like smarter just because they've survived for so long. Whereas these new guys, I won't say they're like stupid, but they're inexperienced, right? So it just feels a bit dangerous to me. So that's all I was thinking about that.
No, I get that. And just to come back to the whole the comment regarding the COD teams, I think it sort of makes sense for them to enter this space because Overwatch as a game is something that I'm pretty sure overlaps pretty much with their audience. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a large portion of their audience also plays Overwatch, both because it's available on console as well, but also because it's it's such a huge casual sport, and I think it fits their brands more so than like traditional esports teams in a sense, because Overwatch as a team, I don't know, it's just a fresh game. It's a bit of an edge game as well because it's not purely FPS, right? So it's a bit of its own genre in a sense. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, this is still very new. We have no way of knowing how this is going to work out. This is just very speculative. But let's just say I think you and I are going to follow the progress of this league quite closely.
Yeah, I will say this for anybody who isn't watching this league, which will be like a majority of the viewers, I imagine, because you're either you're probably Dota 2 fans. The point, what you want to think about for this league is just basically think of it as a giant social experiment. And
with a lot of money.
With a lot of money behind it, because what basically Blizzard is doing something that nobody else has ever done or even tried to do, because they're not only trying to do this franchising thing. As far as I know, as far as like the plans I've heard, like the podcast with Monte Cristo, podcast of like the other like Overwatch experts, it feels like they're trying to do this franchise thing and they're trying to create an open circuit, and that might be that might be something that might happen in Dota 2, might happen in CS:GO one day. So we'll just let them figure it out first, and then and then we'll adopt things that work, and then discard things that don't. So
Yeah, and
that's kind of how I think about it.
I'm sure the success or the lack thereof of this league can have huge implications in any other esport as well, right? Because I mean, we've seen it with CGS. You know, a failure on a large scale can definitely discourage sponsors from getting into the space. But success on a large scale can definitely, encourage sponsors and just investors in general to come into the space. So if Overwatch League is a huge successful product, I'm sure we'll see a lot more bigger brands and names entering the esports scene, and then also obviously spread into CS:GO and Dota 2. I mean, we've already seen Immortals now spread into Dota 2, which doesn't necessarily have to do anything to do with Overwatch in a sense, but I'm sure that once, I don't know, Coca-Cola sponsors Overwatch or whatever. Actually, they already do sponsor some esports stuff, but
yeah. Like for instance, like I'll give you an example of that. I think, for instance, North, the CS:GO team, I think it's going to be very likely that Refresh or North are going to go into Dota 2 eventually. Like, you don't get Malk just because... Like, I know Malk is very experienced with all the esports stuff, but you don't get him just for, like, a CSGO management. I think you also get him because eventually you want to go into Dota 2.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
For sure. And he said so as well, right, in his reflection with Thorin, that he does plan on adding a Dota 2 team at some point. Or, that's part of the reason why he's been added to both Schalke and North.
Yeah, so I feel like it only helps. I won't say it only helps, but there are positives in there. So that's why you want to at least like look at it without like thinking it's all going to be terrible. So
right. All right, since we've talked a lot about Overwatch, let's head into the next topic, which I forget changing topics all the time, on the overlay. But another esport in a sense. I say in a sense because obviously a lot of people are questioning whether or not it can be an esports, and the same questions have been asked to Overwatch, like, is this even going to be a successful esport? Because thus far, it hasn't really been an esport just yet. But that's a discussion we'll keep for later. So let's focus on PUBG for now. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, the battle royale phenomenon that's taking everybody by storm. Steven, are you playing it?
I played a few games, got bored. What about you? You play it?
I fiend it.
You fiend it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you got bored because you haven't played with me yet, but we'll get to that later. It's hugely popular. It's selling out, or it's not selling out, but it's sold pretty much across the world. Like, everybody's buying it. I don't have a friend that doesn't have it, to be honest, or that number at least is decreasing by the day. And they also overtook Dota's. They overtook Dota over a weekend where they had like more concurrent players. They've broken a couple of records in that regard as well. It's popular, and as any game these days, if it's popular, people are going to be asking, can it be an esport? And it had its first tournament. Bit of a few hiccups. I watched it. Did you watch it?
No, I didn't watch it. I was too busy doing something else.
Yeah. But it's... All right, just based on your opinion, having played the game, and I assume having seen discussion regarding the game, having looked into it, how do you feel about that topic as an esport?
I think I agree with the French guy, the guy who went on Thorne's podcast about it, where it does. If you just look at the raw numbers, it does have a very strong basis to be an esport, in the sense that people want to watch it, people want to play it, people want to see it. I think in those raw numbers, I don't think there's any reason to disregard it. I think it can be an esport, but here's the crucial part, I guess, is the observing is kind of whack.
It's awful.
Right?
Awful.
The observing is kind of whack. I feel like they are going to have to figure out a structure that actually makes this thing work, just because it's not like a regular competition. It's not like a 1v1. It's not a team v team. It's basically a free-for-all.
Yeah.
Right?
It is.
I assume that's how they ran it, and that's a very different kind of feel to any kind of game or any kind of competition. So I'm not even sure if they want it to be a competition in like the purest sense. But if you're not going to make a competition, like, is it really? Then what are you going to do with it, right? So there's a lot of questions as to how you even get it off the ground. Just because there are so many questions about the structure of how a tournament should run, like. What, are you just going to run qualifiers where only the top 50 of each like FFA survives and goes on to the next one, or what?
Yeah, that's definitely a big issue, and I think those are two different issues. One is the spectator aspect, but then one obviously is the whole, the actual competitiveness, right? Like how consistent can a player actually place in a certain range, and like how telling is that about the skill, or if it's just like still is how much RNG is there, right? And in that sense, I think you can compare it a lot to Hearthstone. Actually, Hearthstone as a game started out also because it was a spectator experience, or because it was very popular on Twitch. Everybody played it. It broke a couple of records as well in that regard. Like it was largely very, very popular. People watched it, and even though it is an esport today, I would call it an esport at least. There's definitely a lot of money in it. I think it's a very edge esport in a sense that that's not like one of the big titles. It's probably not even a top 5 title at this stage.
Yeah, like if you talk about Hearthstone, I feel like its streaming presence is stronger than its esports presence.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be the same case for PUBG as well. Like the streaming presence is always going to be stronger, because if you look at the big streamers, they
like the game.
They like the game. But yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like, for example, if I look at PUBG, I can always deduct 30,000 viewers of any PUBG number, because if Lurk is not streaming PUBG, that's 30,000 down, pretty much, because they're just gonna follow him, right? So I think you can attribute a lot of the PUBG success on Twitch definitely to the streamers, but also to the game. And in that sense, I do think that it's very reminiscent of Hearthstone. There's also a lot of RNG involved, which made Hearthstone, like a lot of people question whether or not Hearthstone could be an esport because of the RNG factor. And I think the same can be said about PUBG. So in a sense, I do think there's potential for it to be an esport. But like I said, the spectating experience makes it very bad right now. It's like at least a year away from me, anyway, to be a watchable experience. Unless they, just redesign the game entirely and suddenly everything's smoother. But the observing experience is awful, and I think that also prevents a couple of tournaments from actually existing. I know that I've actually been in talks with a couple of people regarding PUBG tournaments, and some of them are definitely questioning whether or not they can even run an event this early, just because the game design and the game client is just in very early stages.
Yeah, makes sense. It's still basically like early access, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still early access. So,
but to be fair, Dota 2 was in beta for like 2 years or 3 years, some shit.
True. And the funny thing is, the spectating experience in Dota 2 was incredible at the time. It was groundbreaking, actually. The fact that Dota TV as a product is still so unique in the esports sphere. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can compare it to GoTV, but that's basically, it's the same idea, principle.
Same idea, same principles.
Yeah.
And it works. And I feel like you have to do something like that, but that kind of spectating, if you want to call it that, I guess, is very specific to hardcore players and hardcore watchers.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know if PUBG has that kind of audience.
Not yet, anyway. I mean, it's difficult to say, if the audience is there or if there would be an audience for it. If the tool doesn't exist yet. Early. Exactly. But I don't know. I definitely think there's potential for it to be an esport, and I mean, if millions around the world play it, and if, why not? I mean, who's to say that we're going to shun a game for being, or wanting to be an esport? That's the funny thing, actually. People make fun of other games. Oh, you want to be an esport? Oh, that's so much RNG. And like, oh, it's just silly to be an esport. But the idea of esport itself kind of sounds silly. It's like,
yeah, like basically the only thing you need is for people to want to play it and people to want to watch it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be that big. Like, I remember there was some... This is really old, but I think in like 2012, there was an Age of Empires tournament in Vietnam. So there you go.
Yeah, there's still Age of Empires tournaments going on today. I talked to somebody at TI about it, and yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, like you said, as long as somebody wants to watch it, it can be a spectator sport. Yeah, there's still questions about the actual competitiveness, but I do think that, at the PUBG event, for example, that they hosted at Gamescom, there were a couple of players that consistently placed amongst the top 10. Like, that is definitely possible. So, in that sense, I do think this is, for now anyway, it's just, it's still a discussion, obviously, amongst a lot of people, but I don't know, for me, there's a lot of potential for it to be.
I will say this, if that was a DreamHack, I'd probably just run a BYOC tournament for it.
They did.
Right? Like, I'd do something like that.
A DreamHack Summer, it's DreamHack,
okay, yeah. Well, I guess we're thinking along the same lines then, because I feel like it's too popular a game to not use in that kind of setting.
Exactly. And it's perfect. It's perfect for these kind of events. And honestly, it could be like a side event. I mean, if you look at if you look at, say, TI, obviously TI is not going to tarnish its brand and like its magnitude by hosting another esport event at the same event. But just imagine there was an event like a Dota event that invited 10 teams, right? That's already 50 players. If you include their managers, that's 60 players. You can play a custom PUBG game or a PUBG tournament if you want.
So basically, you're telling me this is what the summit's going to do next time.
I kind of hope they will. Although I don't think they have sufficient amount of PC. Actually, I'm not sure. I can't.
They might.
They might. I'm not sure.
I agree with you in that sense. Like, but right now, besides the DreamHacks, there isn't really a similar type of event like that in PC esports. Evo basically works like that, and majority of fighting game tournaments work like that. But as for esports, it's very hard for like. Let's say, for instance, ESL New York that just happened to CS:GO. Right. I can't imagine that they would like break open an area just so like spectators can show up and play PUBG, right?
Yeah,
like,
it would be way too fucking expensive as well.
Yeah, it has to be a very specific type of event to do it.
Yeah, and DreamHack definitely, like you said, is a perfect example of an event that could do it consistently because they are a LAN party, right? It's literally bring your own computers, so that could definitely be a thing. But I think we've talked enough about PUBG. We'll continue following it, but for now it is just a fun or not so much fun game, depending on how you look at it. So we're going to move on to Dota 2. And we have a couple of things. Dota 2, let's start with the roster changes before we get into the juicier things. Let's start with Immortals, just because Immortals, I think, we already mentioned them. Immortals, they entered the Dota 2 scene, and they picked up the former MVP kNg roster, the Koreans.
Yeah.
So Kyo, MP, 4F, Dubu, and Febi. They've already played a couple of games. You know, it's neither here nor there. They've been both really bad and both also promising, so I'm not sure where to put them just yet, but how do you feel about, first of all, the five guys reuniting, and then second of all, Immortals entering the space?
All right. For the five guys reuniting, this is going to sound kind of fucked up, but I think they had to. I think their play styles are very limited in what they could do, and the split up made them realize that they were, even though there was a hard cap limit on how far they could go with their style, it's basically as far as they could ever go, period. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like,
I get what you're saying. Yeah, we had that discussion. We had a similar discussion before, yeah. No, I totally get that, and... No, go ahead. Go on.
Like this isn't like a Cloud9 situation where, like if I look at the individual players, Eternal Envy, AUI, MSS, these guys, Pilai Dai. If I look at Fada, if I look at any of these individual players, yeah, I really like that team. But if I had to be honest, I'd say if you split them up, I think any of those single players could probably find more individual success than they could together.
And I mean,
because they were never able to change what they were fundamentally at their core, right? So,
right, and they did, right? When they kicked AY, he won TI.
Oh, he won TI.
When Paladai and Envy went to Secret, they won the Shanghai Major. Well, Fata, I guess. Well, he
went to Liquid.
He went to Liquid, and he did really well. He
sick,
he won Epicenter, competed with OG for like the Manila Major.
Yeah, so that's the entire thing. Whereas you split up these Immortals guys, these Korean players. We've already seen it. The only guy I think that could do it is 4F, but everybody else, I don't think they could like get more results individually.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, we've basically seen it now in the past season. They all played or placed very badly. Everybody made it to TI, but all of them placed very badly. With MP, I think, placing the highest.
Yeah,
if I recall.
But I feel like 4F is like the best player of the five and could still do it, but beyond him, I don't think so.
The question, though, is how far can they get now as a group again? MVP kNg, when they did split up, or just before they split up, they just placed 5-6 at TI, which was a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
But the question is, can they really A, get back to that, and B, or can they? Yeah. Do you think they can get back to that form?
All right. First of all, that form was like a miracle. It's like a semi-miracle run.
Yes.
Like, I feel like they way overperformed multiple times. And I don't think it's realistic to expect them to get back there soon or even over a long period of time. So I'm not I'm not that optimistic about how well this will do as like an overall world team. And just in terms of NA though, I think they're dangerous enough that they could get through. But it really depends on how NA shapes up. As far as I can tell, there's EG and Dire that's good, and then below them you'd have to have somebody like Complexity or Immortals, and I don't really understand how that one would work out, like how that particular matchup works out for them.
Yeah, no, I got that. Although Complexity did just recently beat them 2-0 very convincingly, Immortals had no chance basically. Also, kind of got outdrafted. But yeah, just to get back to that, I do agree with you. Immortals or the former MVP Phoenix roster, I also agree that their run, while it was great to watch and they're great guys to watch, was also a little bit of not necessarily luck, but it's one of these things that I don't think they can pull off consistently. And I think they've shown that they can't really produce these results consistently, even if they did well at, what was it, Shanghai Major, and no, I think Shanghai Major was the one where they did bad at, but they won Dota Pit and then did really well at another LAN event.
And then they did really well at TI, right?
Yeah,
they're like it's a very funny team in the sense that they're very style. I said this before. They're very style makes them more dangerous on land than it should be.
Yeah,
because it puts so much pressure on the other team.
And I wonder though if they can even make it to those LAN events this time around, because the scene has become much more competitive, especially since they're in an NA now, right? Well, actually, there's not even.
It would have been bad for them if they went to SEA too.
Yeah, it would have probably been worse if they had been to SEA. Although to be fair, I think
their style works better in SEA.
Yeah, I think they showed that they know how to play, or that they beat the SEA teams quite consistently. Like Faceless in a sense. They just consistently know how to deal with the other SEA teams. In NA, again, thus far, not really convincing. The Dire definitely looks much better. Complexity looked better than them, and Immortals, I don't know, looks a bit shaky. Obviously, it's still at the very beginning of the season, but
yeah, there's a long way to go, and it's not like we can predict how the patch metas will work. Maybe one day, Ice Frog is like, you know what? What do you miss, Ice Frog? I miss mids that punch people in the face. Yeah. What? And then Q is all of a sudden the best player in the world.
Yes,
like that could happen.
It could. And definitely. There definitely could be a thing where they become patch heroes or patch team. That has happened before. Who knows? Maybe one of the new heroes is going to be one of their OP heroes or whatever. So, I don't know. Definitely a lot of things that can happen. But for now, Immortals, we'll keep on following them. But for now, they're just a team at this stage. Not really. I don't know. They're not really hyping me up as much as it does for other people.
I will say this. I think this was a pretty smart pickup for the Immortals org in general, because I feel like this particular team actually has like a decent fan base in the West, and that's where Immortals is obviously based out of. They definitely don't have a fan base in Korea because nobody plays in Korea. Nobody probably even knows they exist except for that one time they showed up on a news post like, "Oh, Immortals did well at TI." Like nobody knows them in Korea, so I feel like this is a good alliance between those Immortals guys and the Immortals org. And I do think that they have like enough personality that they can do all the outside stuff that Immortals wants them to do.
Right. Noah Winston did an AMA on the R.Dota2 subreddit just yesterday, and he did say that one of the things that he wants to add to the community is like like you said, the extra content. And I also agree. I think the Koreans is a perfect pickup because, like I said, there is a fan base, but there's not really content around them just yet, right? I mean, what do you really know about them aside from the whole, they like to run at people. Febby lived on the street for a couple of years. That's it. You don't really know too much else because while they do have personalities, they're not really that public about it.
They basically lost their front man in March, like eons ago. So, I feel, and this is for those who don't know, Immortals is originally a League of Legends team. And even though they're technically a multi-brand team, the reason I'm like stating that they come from League of Legends is because League of Legends the way they do business, so to speak, is the results come and go. You can't really control that. But what you can control is the product you put out, which is in this case the content. And so that's why they're so insistent upon the content part.
Which I think is great. I think this is definitely something that we need in Dota 2, because a lot of the teams, like in Dota 2, it's always been just winning as long as you win tournaments, everything else doesn't matter, because tournaments is where the money is, right? You don't really need to you don't even need to create a brand or like brand loyalty or whatever. As long as you just win, you're just going to be successful anyway. But in other esports, definitely, doing like sponsor obligations and that kind of stuff, it's
Yeah. So like
very
for
important.
instance, um, I'll give you a good example. If you want to look at a difference between like a regular Dota 2 team and like one of these other ones that come from a different like esport, look at Liquid,
Yes.
and then just look out for the documentaries. The really good one is like the League of Legends Breaking Point, but the CS:GO one is really good too, and that's the kind of content they're likely to create. Now it won't be as dramatic just because Liquid is a fucking dramatic ass team, but it should still be good, especially for people who actually who are actually interested in just their personal lives and stuff like that. So
I believe they also shot something during TI. Or,
yeah.
no, I'm very sure actually that they had somebody filming during TI, so.
Oh, also, you should totally watch that trailer for True Sight if you haven't seen that, because at the very end, I swear to God, SCCC, he's either going to become Batman or he's become the Joker. I don't know which one yet, but he's going to be a superhero or a supervillain.
It's so amazing. I have to wonder, like, it's so perfect. I have to wonder if it was staged or like somehow CG'd or something, because like the camera pans and the way his expression, like everything else, it's so perfect. Like you couldn't.
All
I don't
right.
know. You'd have to script it honestly to get it.
I'll say this: SCCC. I've seen his facial expression a lot. He's actually. It seems like he is a very serious competitor. So I'm not surprised he made that. So my guess is like Valve just had like a billion cameras, or like they're just hoping
No, but
one of these.
yeah, right. No, right. I totally get that. But the whole like they pan the camera, they have it on the screen where everybody's celebrating, and then they pan it, and then he's like,
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
He's alone watching the screen, and then he walks back to sit down to like think and like be sad and shit. But it's so perfect.
Like the internal rage, right?
Yes. Oh God. It's I don't know.
I,
It's,
it
that is the
almost, it
true
almost made
$20
me,
million shot.
it almost made me believe that newbie could make it one day, but I still think they're chokers.
Almost.
I know them on the inside. They're chokers.
All right. We may have jumped from Immortals to Newbie, but we're gonna make a better jump now to Complexity, since I kind of mentioned them already. Complexity Gaming. So they have also a new roster. They stuck to their core of Moo, Z-Freak, and now Kyle. He's rebranded himself again.
I'm gonna keep calling him Swindles. I don't give a fuck.
Yes, keep calling him Swindles, keep calling him Melons, keep calling him Swindle Melons. I don't care, but God damn it. But yeah, he's rebranded himself to Kyle. Anyway, that's the core of the team, and they've just gotten back Limp and Chessie, the Swedish brothers. So there are two brothers again in the team. Just to reiterate, they have played a couple of games already. Looked sort of promising here and there. They almost looked really strong in the King's Cup for the whole like BTS thing, but then they lost to both Digital Chaos and the Dire, and then they again lost to Digital Chaos, I think. So not very impressive in the end. But then they sort of recovered, beating Immortals at PGL or something. So I don't know. They're somewhere in between. They're definitely not at the top of NA, but they're still a contender. But how do you feel about the roster?
I don't think. All right, so this is actually technically a new old roster,
Right.
or very similar to it. The only difference is it's Moo instead of Handskin, and like the rules are a bit different.
Right.
But if you think about it that way, then the question is, well, did something change in the meantime, in the players, in the structure, or in like their individual teamwork that can make you believe they'll be better than they once were? I don't know. I haven't followed Chessie and Limp since they like departed from Complexity, because they went to the Swedish scene, and the Swedish scene, no offense, in Dota 2 it kind of sucks.
Yeah, it kind of sucks. Just to quickly interject here, Limp did go on to play for Alliance and Ninjas in Pajamas in Alliance.
Oh, no wonder I didn't know.
But, yeah, and no result. I mean, I don't think they qualified for a single LAN event. And then there was Chessie, who took a break because of his back problems, so he also didn't really play competitively, but obviously, has been streaming, so he's definitely kept up with the game. He's been playing FPL a little bit, so, he's not out of touch at all in a sense. But, yeah, still, I think if they hadn't played with them before, I think you would question, or you would probably be a little bit skeptical about this team, because there's so much unknown in a sense. But since you've seen them before in the team, I don't know, I think there's promise in this. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. So, like I said, like I said, it's hard for me to judge it just because the two guys are coming back. I don't know if they've improved or not throughout their time. I will say the move from Moo back to offlane makes more sense to me than keeping him on carry. But I still think Melons himself, like as like a five player, I'm not convinced about that. But you have to keep him just because he's the captain of the team, and I mean that in like every respect. When you're because this isn't like a normal captain where he's like doing just the information, like the tactics or the strategy. He's also like the spiritual captain, so to speak.
The emotional leader.
So so even though like I don't think much of him as a player, like I do respect the fact that he is an integral part of the team and he needs to be part of the team. So like I said, there's always going to be that limit, and because you have that limit, usually you want to fill that up with like more skilled players, but that goes against like what complexity stands for, kind of.
Yes.
So it's kind of so I'm not really sure as to how far they can really go. I'll have to watch them on land. That's my. I have to see how. Because you have to see the first how good Chessie and Limp are on land. I know Zfreak's going to be good, and then I need to see if Moo can like resurrect himself on offlane.
Personally, I don't know. I think. I mean, it's difficult to judge a team just by a couple of online games because
All right, wait. Did they play DC yet?
Yeah, they did, and they lost 2 times against them.
Did they ban Meepo?
That's actually a good question. I didn't check it.
Because I feel like there's hope if they ban Meepo. I feel like he's learning something. I feel like something might have been learned. I feel like something might have been learned. So maybe there's hope. If he did not ban Meepo, I'm out of here. I'm like, fuck out of here. How many times you gotta lose to Meepo, man?
You know what? Let me just check. He banned a Meepo in this game. He didn't ban it in the first phase against them once, so they picked it.
And then they lost.
Then he was forced to ban it in the first phase again.
Yeah, I'm the fuck out of this complexity like trade, man. I can't handle a guy who keeps thinking he could beat Abed's Meepo over and over again.
Yes, he literally in the first game versus them. In the very first game versus them, he doesn't ban Meepo, they pick it, they win, and then he's first phase banned it since.
God damn it. God damn it. How's nothing learned?
Well, but yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I think move back to offlane, like you said, it's a great thing for them. I do think that he was always better on the offlane. And also, I think the team as a whole has worked with better when he was on the offlane. Cal as a 5-position support, I don't know, I think he seems pretty solid, and it's probably the best position for him, mostly because captains on support positions is always the best thing for every team, I think. For me personally, anyway.
Unless you're Eternal Envy, then you be a man. Go to mid lane and lead.
I mean, has it worked for him thus far? I don't know.
Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it worked. Just never won, but sometimes it worked.
And yeah, Limp and Chessie, I don't know. It's weird because both Limp and Chessie, like Chessie's actually a bit of an interesting story in Dota, right? He came into the scene as a stand-in for Alliance, and then he was about to be a regular player, but his back problems kept him from becoming that irregular player, and then he got to Complexity. But once again, after they didn't really make it that far, he again retired because of his back problems. But his skill-wise, he is such a strong player. Like he can be a really, really strong player. Same with Limp. Limp is, I mean, he was one of the first players to reach 9K. I think he was like the first 5 or something. And I mean, that is not nothing. So in a sense, both of them are very talented and very skilled. But I don't know, they don't really seem to be able to, use their potential outside of Complexity apparently.
Yeah, well, I will say this. I won't say Chessie has bad decision making, but Limp might just because he thought he could go to Alliance or NIP. We'll see it. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes.
In all fairness though, the Swedes, they always want to go back to their like roots in a sense. They wanted that like home.
They want to confirm, was it really that bad here? Yes, it was.
Which is actually, that's actually also one of the interesting parts, because one of the reasons why they split from Complexity at the time was, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think they initially wanted to stick with that team that they qualified for both Shanghai Major and Manila Major, and then they made the wild card for TI 6 and lost there against Execration, obviously with the Meepo. But I think they initially wanted to stick with that roster because they were very happy with each other as players and as people, obviously. But I think part of the reason why they split was because the Swedes didn't want to stay in NA and they didn't want to play in an NA team. And there was the culture difference. That's something they stated back then. So
yeah, there is definitely a culture difference. I don't actually know specifically what, but every Swede that's come over to NA has almost all of them have had problems except for Zai. I don't even know why Zai is an exception. Because I'm not even just talking about Dota 2. I'm talking about like every game I've seen. They've all had like culture problems when they go to NA, except for Zai.
Zai has been trained at a very young age by PPD, in Han. He's been bathing in salt for like a couple of years, and now he's accepted the lifestyle. Yeah, he's one with it. I'm not quite sure either, to be honest. I haven't been in Sweden too often to really know.
But I feel like if there's anything that will motivate them to stay in NA, it's failure. So in that sense, going to Alliance and NIP might have been a good decision.
Yes. All right. Actually, wait. Did he go into NIP? I think he only went to Alliance. Sorry, I probably.
Well, that's even worse.
No, he only went to
Alliance. Staying in Alliance.
I'm mistaking it because he was in NIP before, and then there was another NIP recently, but he wasn't actually on that team. So that was totally on me. I know somebody's going to point it out because they are not going to skip until this point. They only whatever. Let's move on. We've talked enough about complexity. Another team though. Or two more teams, actually. I just want to talk about the whole thing. But VGJ.Storm and VGJ Thunder. When I first heard these names, I thought of 2005 when people were like, when did you come up with your own username basically? Like your handle, right? Stucci, when did you come up with it?
Mine was just a mistaken typo, but I can just make a very good origin story like the Joker or something. Oh. But for most people, it's like you're like 10 years old, you're like X, capital X, X, and then you just write like Slayer of Demons or some bullshit, right? Like,
exactly. That's how a lot of names are born. That's why some of the older players they have really silly names as well, like Demon, for example. Like there's a demon in every game, basically, because that's just such a casual name, right? Or a common name. And then there's a couple of stupid names, and some people grow out of them and change or want to rebrand, like Swindle Melons, for example. But then there's people that just think it's still cool. VGJ.Storm, VGJ Thunder.
Big Daddy
No-Tell. Although, to be fair, I think Big Daddy was born out of an inside joke that they had at Fnatic. So in that sense, I totally get it, but it still sounds a bit silly. But yeah, VGJ.Storm, VGJ Thunder have been born. So Jerry Midland has extended his reach, his sponsorship or whatever, his partnership with VG Gaming, and has now two teams, and one is based in NA, which is VGJ.Storm, which we're mostly going to talk about because the Thunder team I couldn't care less about. So that's the former Team Freedom team. So they have Francis Lee, they have Stan King, Sneak King, and then they added Ritsu for some reason, and then 747 who's rebranding himself also to Rioya, whatever.
God damn it! Why would you do this?
I have no idea, dude.
What is wrong with you?
He's literally gotten some sort of fame. I'm not shitting on him. I actually think he's a very promising player, right? And a lot of people recognize his name for being an NA player that streams and that also played with Danish Bears. And now he's rebranding himself. What the hell? But yeah, so the team is very promising. Team Freedom almost made it to TI as well. That was also one of the storylines. So this is definitely a good pickup for VGJ. But how do you feel about the VGJ brand? Do you think it's cool? This is pretty much the first time, or the second time actually, a Chinese team has extended to NA now. First one was Speed Gaming International. But yeah,
that was a shit show.
Was a shit show.
I will say this for Speed Gaming, may they rest in peace. They basically put through EE through the Crucible, and because they did that, that's why they won an MLG. That's my personal belief, that because they fucked up everything, they had nothing left to lose.
Would you say then that's the reason why he went to SEA, because that's the next
that's
best
the final
Crucible
that's the final
fight?
test? Yes,
yeah?
I believe that's why he went to SEA. It's the only in order to see the dawn, you have to go through the darkness. Or that's what I assume is going through his fucking anime mind. Like I don't know what's wrong with Eternal Enemy, man. Like you could literally explain every action he's ever taken as some kind of anime plot.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know what's wrong with him, but that's just how he rolls.
We're currently in the time chamber arc, probably.
Yeah, hyperbolic.
Hyperbolic chamber.
Yeah, and he'll either come out broken or ascended.
Yeah.
You know, typical EE 50/50.
Sounds about right. Anyway,
Back to VGJ.
VGJ.
Completely
VGJ.
off topic.
Yes.
I'm not actually. I feel like it's just because Jeremy Lin is a fan of the game, and I don't mean like he's a hardcore fan because he's like way too busy to be a hardcore fan, but he like legitimately likes it. He likes playing it. He likes watching it.
Look, sorry to sidetrack you there, but he didn't recognize fear, like literally the fear when they met for the first time, even though they're in literally the same documentary. So
that's pretty funny.
I have my doubts how much of a fan he is about the esports scene. I don't doubt that he's an actual fan of the game because I've seen him done YouTube content and he's said multiple times that he is a fan of the game and that he plays it regularly. But I very much doubt that he's a fan of the actual esports scene.
Yeah, okay. Obviously, if you can't recognize fear, there's a pretty high chance you won't recognize any of the esports players.
Exactly.
But he does like the game, so in that sense, I understand why he wants to do this. And maybe he thinks it's like some kind of weird experiment, like he can learn something from this. I'm not really sure. I feel like this is just only good things for China, not China, but Vici as the org, because I assume Jeremy Lin is fucking huge in China. That's just my guess, based off of the fact that all Chinese NBA players that go over and do well are like revered in China. So that's my guess. So it's good for them. As for the actual team, it's a good pickup it's a good pickup, I guess, if you're just only looking for an NA team. But like I said earlier, like you have to go through a lot of people just to get out of a qualifier. Like let's assume, for instance, EG always gets invited. You're still gonna have to fight the Dyers. Still gonna have to fight DC. Still gonna have to fight Complexity. Still gonna have to fight Immortals. It's gonna be a murderer's row. Like I'm not sure. Like maybe they're good. Like I'm not exactly sure, but it's gonna be really tough for them to get onto a LAN.
I agree, and this is something I actually in the AMA for Noah Winston I actually asked a couple of questions. So one of the one was the Dota 2 scene has seen a lot of brands come and go, and a lot of them pull out very quickly when they realize there's no success, right? And even though Vici Gaming obviously has been in Dota 2 for a while, they're entering a new region, and this is one of the teams where this might not have a lot of success in the season. Even though there are a lot of tournaments and a lot of opportunities, there's a fair chance they will at most qualify for 1 or 2 minors. So for me, the question is this like a long-term plan for them and to build a brand and presence in the North American esports scene potentially even, right? And not just Dota 2, but just in general? Or is this more of a short-term thing? We just want to have like an LGD-esque scenario where we have as many teams as possible in the next 10 months, basically, right?
See, that's the weird thing about these Chinese orgs, because you have to actually be inside of them to understand what the fuck they're thinking sometimes. Like, what kind of org is this? Is this run by another billionaire's son? Because he might just do it for the fuck of it? Or is this run by Ruru, who literally wants to, like, control the world? Like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly on which end of the spectrum we're running here. So, it's very different in that sense. I will say, as long as Jeremy Lin has some level of interaction with the team, as in like he's like, oh look, that's my team. Like that's all he has to say for like once every 6 months.
Yes,
I think it'll be fine. But if he forgets, like you're saying, if he like meets like Rutsu on the street, he's like, I feel like I recognize that guy. Whatever. And then I feel like that's the end.
If he does like what was it Shaquille O'Neal? No, was it Michael Jordan? Somebody. Who invested into Team Liquid?
Oh, no, it was
Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson. Was it?
Yeah, Magic Johnson. That's who it was.
He tweeted out like he tweeted out a couple of times about Team Liquid at the International, for example. That's the kind of thing that. Team, that's right? The kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing that you need to do when you invest into these teams. So. I hope that not only Jeremy Lin but anybody else who's investing into the scene draws a little bit of attention to us little guys.
Yeah, Shaq is definitely into it, but Shaq also invests into like the worst fucking team possible. So Rest in peace, NRG.
All right, let's move on to the Weeha stack, which is an actually interesting team in my opinion. Not that VGJ.Storm isn't interesting, but to me the Weeha stack has much more potential in regards to making it to multiple events, potentially even majors. So we have Weeha, we have Cancel, we have Tomato, Kezu, and Saksa. Weeha moving to the 5 position, something that we already actually I don't think we discussed this, did we?
No,
No, I don't think so
I'm
either.
surprised he did it, but okay, keep going.
Yeah. The interesting portion is that Cancel and Tomato, also 2 mid players, but only Cancel is going to keep on playing mid. Tomato is going to play carry. And then obviously Saksa as the 5 position, and then Kazu as the offlaner. Yeah, the only question now is then, how do you feel about the team? Do you think there's a lot of potential here? Any
Do they
questions?
have a leader type in the team?
See, that's the big question for me as well. Supposedly Saksa is, and he did coach Hellraisers as well, so maybe he's a more dominating person.
Maybe he's like literally Alexander Reborn. Is that what you're trying to say? Fucking from Macedonia or some shit.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Like I said, I've said this multiple times, but among all the esports games, Dota 2 is like the esport game that loves its captains the most, or its leaders the most. And what I mean by that is like, yeah, you need superstar players, but if you just look at the like overall results among all like different tournaments, it's more likely to follow the captain than it is to follow like the superstar player if they split up. So I feel like that's an incredibly important figure in any Dota 2 team, especially one that doesn't have the resources to like hire a bunch of infrastructure where you get like a coach, you get analysts, and even if you did do that, would the players even respect that? That's another question you have to think about too. So like I don't really buy into these skill stacks until I've seen them like work.
Yeah, same. And in this scenario especially, if anything, it almost feels like it's going to be like a huge farm team for like some of the bigger teams going into the season. In the sense that if they're not successful, I'm pretty sure they're still going to be able to like display their skill because again, all of them are very individually skilled, right? And I don't know. It's difficult to call. It's also very interesting because a lot of these players are very young, and they haven't really been in the competitive scene for a long time.
Yeah,
I mean,
like this is a bunch of new guys.
exactly.
Right?
I mean, Cancel doesn't have a lot of competitive experience. Kesu has only been here for 2 years. Same with Weeha. The Saksa as well, basically 2 to 3 years. And what else? Who do we have? Tomato is just 16 years old or something. So
Yeah, like the whole entire problem I have with this is like, Weehaw was around for a little bit, but he was never good until like he joined Secret or he joined Misery, and that's not something I think Weehaw can do. Like create this entire structure or create a strategic vision for the team. So who's gonna do it? That's the huge question because this is Dota 2 is also it's very much like a strategy game where you're trying to like unlock the potential within your players to their maximum, and I don't really see anybody on this team doing it. So
right. Maybe Weeha has matured a little bit more, and not that he was childish or anything, but growing up, you learn a lot of things, and he's been around the world now, and he's been competing with like Secret and Digital Chaos or Planet Odd, so he's gotten a lot of experience, and now moving to the 4 position, maybe has like visions for the game that he thought he couldn't realize when he was on the mid lane, right? So who knows? But obviously, I still agree with you. There's a lot of questions regarding this team, and in terms of performances, I mean, they've only, as far as I know, played a couple of like open qualifiers, so there's not a lot of like actual evidence of them being like a really strong team thus far. So we'll probably have to wait on that.
yeah,
Next team, I'm actually gonna skip one here, or do you still want to talk about it? The Synderen stack. I don't really care for that too much.
man, Cinderin, just become a caster. The end.
Alright, and then the last team basically is Digital Chaos. They stuck to their 3 core with Mason, Abed, and Boba, and they've now acquired Moon Meander as a 5 position support and MSS as the offlaner. Honestly, I think that's a very strong move. Like, I think Abed and Mason are two very strong individual
players.
The only question is, does Bulba as a not necessarily solo like shot caller? I'm sure him and Moon are sharing the responsibilities in a sense, but I'm questioning whether that is going to work because Moon Meander is also not necessarily known as like the leader, basically.
Yeah, I don't believe in this. There's a reason like Bulba needs to like work. Bulba can only work as like a second caller at best. Like I don't believe in his ability to be decisive at all. Like no offense to the guy, I actually think he's like one of the great like minds of Dota 2.
Right.
But I've never seen him be able to implement it on inside of the game. Right, and his own personal performance is like very up and down, and that's fine if you're able to play around that. But I haven't seen anybody really play around it since like his very very old Liquid days.
Pretty much, and I mean, I've actually talked to Mason about this because Mason made a comment on NA Dota on the forums, right? And he's like,
yeah,
y'all are hyping up Bulba, but the results speak for themselves. Like, what has he actually ever achieved? And then he starts listing out all the results, and now they're playing on a team. But it is one of the things where, Bulba is definitely one of the greater minds, but what has it ever translated into, right? Like in terms of achievements, his biggest achievements have been as coach.
Yeah, coaching EG, like coaching other teams, coaching Secret, like these are all good things, and you have to respect him as a coach at least.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I think he's like one of the great coaches Dota 2 seen. Arguably, you can even say you can even put him up there as arguably the best, as far as we know, because it's not like we know that much about China and how their coaches work.
And in terms of individual skill, he's also pretty good. I mean, when they were strong in Liquid, he was one of the better players on that team as well, right? And even when he was back with EG the year before that, when he was their mid laner, he was also still pretty strong. But I wonder if maybe him having to carry the burden of doing like shot calling during the game, like detracts from both his play and his ability to shot call, if that makes sense, right? There's a lot of pressure on being the leader in a game. And I wonder if maybe he doesn't necessarily feel up to the task to do that, and I don't think
he's ever been up to the task, right? Like, that's my huge problem with this guy. Like, I feel like the essential Bulba problem is his mental makeup. In a sense, like this is a guy I think he legitimately understands, like what's on the line. Like there are players who they're like certain pro players, like they don't really give a fuck. And that makes them incredibly dangerous because when you get to like the clutch moments or the pressure moments, they still don't give a fuck. So they'll just do what they do.
Yeah.
Like I feel like Bulba is a guy who gets into his head pretty easily. Where he's like, oh my god, this is the moment. This is like the $1 million dream coil. Like, oh god.
Like he starts having like a monologue with himself in the middle of the fucking game, and he has,
Or like you give him like two options in the middle of a game, and he'll freeze up and do neither option. When either option could have worked if he did it decisively. Yeah. Like that's like something I've always respected about somebody like Xiao Wei was like, just fucking go. Just go do it now. Yeah. And like everybody fucking follows him no matter like how much they hate him at the time or like how many problems they have. Right? Because he's incredibly decisive, right?
Right.
PPD is incredibly decisive. This is the biggest aspect you want in any captain in any game is decisiveness. And Bulba, for all of his intelligence, all of his knowledge, the fact that he literally knows everything about every single team, he isn't decisive. And so unless they get a guy who can make him decisive, I don't really believe in this team.
Not yet anyway, yeah. We'll see. Maybe Moon Meander can be that person. We haven't really to be fair, it's just very difficult to tell how vocal he has been in previous teams, right?
Yeah.
And to be fair, though, I mean, he has been in teams where where we know there has been like a vocal captain. He's been in a team with Swindles, Misery, Fly, and No Tail. So in that sense, it's very difficult to imagine how much he contributes to a team as a like in-game leader sense. But now as a 5 position, he has to anyway because supports always have to make the calls in the early game at least. Yeah. So in that sense, I'm sure there's Moon. At least if you're a Digital Chaos fan, you should hope that they're going to step it up, or he's going to step it up for his team.
Yeah, especially because, as a player, his decision's always been off lane. So if you're moving him to like the 5, you have to. I feel like there are very few 5s that are like super impactful compared to the other rules. So you have to do something else in the game, whether that's in-game calling or like making the perfect wards or calling the rotation, something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely very difficult to be a noticeably like standout performer on a 5-position hero.
Yeah.
So this is definitely, yeah, like you said, this is definitely something he'll, or any 5-position, not only Moon Meander, but any 5-position.
It's like any of them, right?
Yeah,
Like
usually makes it up with like shot calling or whatever.
Yeah, the most impactful you have is like Pilot Die, and that's technically 6. So
Solo on
Solo's
Dota2 Pro.
amazing, yeah.
Solo is
I'll give him that.
amazing. You know, there's a couple of players actually that copy his style where they just like, you know, as a 5-position, you never really expect the 5-position support to be roaming because it's a goddamn 5-position support, right? So sometimes Solo will just be like, oh, hey, there's a courier. Would be a shame if somebody killed that, right? And then he just kills it. You just don't expect there to be like a level 1 disruptor behind your goddamn tier 2 tower, but he does it. So no, he's definitely one of the standout.
He's like an exception rather than a rule.
Oh, for sure. But let's move on. We've covered pretty much every roster. Yeah, there's a couple of more rosters, but you know, if any of them become relevant, sure, we'll talk about them at some stage. But something that is very relevant is the changes to the Pro Circuit, or the announcement that Valve made to the Pro Circuit of this season. So they pretty much announced the point system and the amount of points distributed per event. So so pretty much every major has at least 1,500 points. Only the last major is going to distribute 2,250 points because it has a significantly higher prize pool. And points are going to be distributed, you know, percentage-wise. Like the first team gets 50% of the total points. So if you win a major, you're secured at least 750 points. All right, Steven. This is pretty much, I would say this is pretty much the first time this has happened in esports. I guess you could maybe compare it a little bit to WCS.
A bit different, but I understand what you mean.
Yeah. But how do you feel about this point system, and how do you feel about the actual execution of it? Do you think this is like well done? Should only 4 teams per event get these points? How do you feel?
I feel like this, while I understand where Valve is coming from, in the sense that it's too hard to distribute the points fairly. So what I mean by that is there's going to be these minors that have shit teams. And there's going to be these minors where like 8 teams show up randomly just because they happen to have open spot on their schedule, and like they happen to be like the 8 best teams in the world. Right? And that's obviously not fair. Like one of them's a shit team, and all of a sudden they get a shitload of points. The other team's like a bunch of all-star teams, but they lose in the groups, so they get no points. But I understand where they're coming from. But the problem with this is it doesn't. Even if you assumed that all the teams are roughly equivalent throughout the year, it doesn't account for format either. Like, if you get what I mean?
It doesn't. Yeah.
Like, there's some formats where it's much easier to get top 4 than it is in other formats, or maybe the seeding is super fucked up, so you might just get an easy run to the points. So it's, while I understand, like, they want to create like the structure. They want to create the structure just to make it easier for people to understand how far they are to getting into TI. It doesn't quite work for me. But I will say it's fine for now, just because this is the first year, and I feel like you can give leeway for the first year when they fuck up, because it's not like they even know what the hell's going on. And the only comparable thing is WCS, but I'll go ahead and say this: WCS is like a 1v1 game. So it's not a completely different thing, and I don't feel. And whereas like in a team game, you also have to measure the fact that there's going to be a bunch of roster shuffles. So it's not like you can just assume like the good teams now will still be in the good teams in the future and stuff like this. It's a very hard thing to rank or think about in that sense. And this is kind of a weird tangent, I guess. But I feel like there isn't anybody in Dota 2 who makes super hard judgments beyond like a few guys, where like they're like, no, this team is complete shit. No, this team is very good. No, this team deserves to go in. No, this team does not deserve to go in. There aren't that many people, and none of them are like super famous. Like we're not talking about like casters or players. Players obviously won't do this. Like casters, as far as I've seen, like very few of them do this. And even then, like they're more on the soft side just because they happen to be like friends, or maybe they just don't think about it as much. Whereas like you go into CS:GO, Thorn will be like, no, this guy's shit, this guy's shit, this guy's shit, this guy's shit, and while it might be harsh, it gives you a much stronger reality of how good a particular team is. So, for instance, like okay, like one of the guys I put on there just for the fuck of it would be like Charlie, right? Because Charlie doesn't usually give a shit. He'll just straight out say, no, complexity is shit. So is Alliance. So is this team. So is this team, right? And that's what you kind of need if you want to make a balanced sort of review of how good each team is and how many points you would want to give for defeating that team or something like that. Because that'd be like closer to reality, even if it doesn't seem fair. Because it's just like one guy deciding something like that. So that's always going to be a problem in Dota 2. So, like, I understand why they did the point system. It's just always going to be super like vague, and it's going to give some weird like outputs. Whereas like, you can complain about the format, and like sometimes you can complain about the seeding of like the old Dota 2 majors, but I feel like they've always generally done a pretty good job of deciding who were the best teams.
I agree. I definitely agree, and this is definitely something that is very worrying going into this season, because tournament organizers have a lot of power here because of teams who they invite and teams who they seed well in either the qualifiers or even at the LAN event, right? What happens if, say, DAC, like Perfect World, is very likely going to host another DAC, which, since it is a Chinese team, since it is a Chinese event and it's hosted by Perfect World, they're going to invite. I mean, last time they invited like 4 Chinese teams. 2 non-Chinese teams, and then they ran qualifiers. What if they do this again and they have 12 teams and at least 5 of them are going to be Chinese, right? And then if they seed them well, they can make sure that at least one of them is going to get top 4 or something.
What are you talking about, Skim? I've seen it every single time. I've seen a Chinese tournament. He's rigging in the brackets. How the fuck did Tyloo get a WSEG like group where no good team was in it?
Yes.
How did that happen?
And these things do happen, and you could argue, hey, maybe it balances out, with the Western events, but there's there's much more Chinese events than there's Western events, and B, a lot of these Western events host very small ones. So ESL, for example, they only have 8 teams at present, which is also something worth discussing because 8 teams for a major is goddamn small.
Yeah.
So in that sense, there's a lot of things that, in my opinion, Valve could do to regulate this. They could require majors to have like a specific seeding system, maybe or maybe have Valve do the seeding for them. Like they have to submit a format, and if the format is acceptable, Valve will do the seeding for them. Something which I think see in CS:GO. I believe Valve does the seeding at CS:GO majors.
No. Valve doesn't do any seeding. Like Valve, like here's what Valve does.
They decide the format though, right?
They decide.
All right.
No. They as far as I know, how it works is tournament organizers, they plan out like their schedule for throughout the year. Then they propose which tournament they want to be a major with the format, and then that's what they do. But the seeding itself has always been structured in the sense that the top 8 seeds are the top 8 who finished last major.
Oh right, yeah, right. No, that's
so. For instance, like you get some really shitty like top 8 seeds.
You get it, yeah.
Where
that is definitely not something that will work in Dota, right? But I mean, and obviously, again, even if we take out Valve here as a sort of, no, actually, Valve has to do something. In my opinion, there has to be a very consistent seeding format in this, because we can't have like goddamn Perfect World seeding LGD as the first team if LGD is like the worst team in the history of Dota 2 teams.
Yeah, and especially we were talking about China, but I'll go ahead and say it. I'm pretty sure this is going to happen in a CIS event where Na'Vi somehow magically get like that perfect bracket. Like, you sons of bitches.
Oh, sure. Hey, they already made it to Starlighter. They already made it to PGL. I'm pretty sure they're going to make it to Epicenter as well.
Yeah, like even if they're a good team, like that's just ridiculous. But that's a huge problem in and of itself. And I like when I talk about Valve, there are generally 2 departments we're talking about. CS:GO one is completely different from the Dota 2 one. So when I say Valve has good seeding, I just mean the Dota 2 version has good seeding. Like, I don't think the CS:GO version even seeds.
That's a sad thing in itself. But yeah, just coming back to the guidelines and regulations that Valve could implement aside from seeding, format is a very I'm not saying they have to dictate the format for every event, because obviously depending on the event, maybe it's like if it's like a 2-day event, they can't obviously do like a round robin whatever group stage or whatever. But I do think that there should be some regulations in regard to either qualifier or.
All right, so here's my answer to that. I guess I actually agree with you, by the way. But here's what I'd do if I was Valve. For the minors, I think I'd allow them to do whatever event whatever format they wanted. The reason is because there's so many minors. I feel like over time that would equalize anyway.
Yeah, all right.
But I'd still personally do the seeding. I feel like seeding isn't that hard to do. Personally speaking, I feel like you're generally gonna know what the better teams are, or where they fall into, and I feel like Valve Dota 2 has always done a good job of that. As for majors, I feel like you have to. I won't say you have to do as one type of format, but it has to be within like a range of formats, like ones you consider competitively viable. So, for instance, if ESL Hamsburg for whatever reason was like weird ass Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, I would not let them be the major. Fuck that, man. Right. You are not allowed to do that for a major, right? Yeah, and then there's also the question of how many participating teams, because I don't think Valve thought of this, but WCS has, and what WCS does is like, if you want to be like a super tournament or whatever, you have to have a certain amount of players. Obviously, nobody does it because it's not profitable. It's like crazy expensive. Right. But for Dota 2, you want to do that just because there's more money in the game, and there's more viable teams at the top.
Right. And if there had been regulations, say they had said, hey, if you want to be a major, you have to have like say 10 teams. I'm sure ESL would have sprung for the additional money for those 2 extra teams, because being the first major or being a major in Dota in general is just such a huge pull that you can't really pass up on, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're already investing X amount of money, do you really care about like a tenth of that X amount of money, right? Yeah. At that stage? So in that sense, I definitely agree, or I definitely think that if those regulations were there, I'm sure we'd probably still have the same amount of majors. And
yeah,
that is. I mean,
it's not even like the format has to be like one thing. It doesn't have to be TI format every time, right? Right. Could be GSL one time, round robin another time, Swiss another time, double elimination another time. Like, there's a lot of choices here that I think are all competitively viable.
Could also have just like some very basic requirements, such as a team cannot be eliminated by after playing only, let's say, like one best of 3 or whatever, right?
Like X amount of games, maybe.
Yeah, exactly, and that definitely could be the case if, say, ESL. I mean, they have run events before where they've only had a single elim bracket. That's it, like no group stage. So that could happen again, and I think that would be horrible for a major, right?
Yeah, especially because majors are supposed to be testing who's the best, and ESL, like famously, like Carmack, the original guy who runs it, like he loves these upsets. I think he personally just loves the upsets. That's why he keeps running these single eliminations. But I don't think I've ever heard a good argument saying that single elimination was better than double elimination. Just from a pure who is the best player, who is the best team in the world situation. And that's what. And because these majors are supposed to be about who is the best team, that's kind of weird, right?
Right. But you know, at the end of the day, I think the question is like, you know, can the current system make sure that we have the best 8 teams invited to TI next year? Yeah. Like that's the goal, right? And ultimately, I think it kind of does, even though I think it's for now anyway, I think it kind of does, but I think it could be much smoother. Like the process could be much smoother. I think right now there's a lot of things that could potentially edge out 1 or 2 teams, but I think the top 6 teams are always going to pull through anyway. But, you know, there could be an edge case where like one team gets screwed over because...
Yeah, let's say for instance, Glorious Leader PPD happens to be in a bunch of these majors. What if a bunch of them aren't double elim? That's gonna be fucking terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, that is definitely a big issue. Then there's seeding, right? What if I don't know? What if you just have like your like that one opponent that always beats you, and you're gonna get seeded?
That happens a bunch of times, right? Like that's happened a bunch of times where I was like, no, this team's actually better than what we're seeing on the result, but they happen to keep running into a bad team for them.
Yeah, and I mean, at the same time, you would argue that this is going to normalize itself out
over the amount of events. Yeah,
but at the same time, because you have to play so many qualifiers, because a lot of these events have only few invites, you're going to be stuck in like qualifiers, and anything can happen in qualifiers. No matter how good of a team you are, there's always going to be that one qualifier that's going to mess you up. Mm-hmm. And even with those invites, by the way, even those invites by themselves are also can be very questionable. Like there could be a team that could get edged into this by just having more invites.
Popularity powered. Yeah. What's that? What's that ESL fan vote? Fan vote? Or like fucking Epicenter's like, Epicenter, don't worry guys, we are hiring Virtus Pro. Oh my god, Virtus Pro! Oh wait a minute, this is CS:GO. They're fucking trash. Like, come on.
Or and that's also something that I mean, this is very speculative, and for all we know, this is not going to happen. But the stand-in rule. What you could do is you could send a stand-in to a team to get points for your own team.
Glorious resolution.
Let's just say LGD is invited to, like, LGD is secured an invite to TI, but they're also an invite to the last event pre the invites rollout, right? And LFY is not a secured invite to TI and is not at the event, but can send a stand-in without any point reduction.
Afu, go get us them points.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
That could definitely happen. That's super shady, right? And that's not something I want to see, because I feel like this is another thing that's very different from WCS and much more impactful. Is that there is a lot of fuckery that can go around if teams are serious about getting to TI. There's a lot of weird fuckery you can do, just in terms of the stand-ins, in terms of player shuffles, all of this stuff, right? And finally, the last point you have to think about is invites are. I won't say this is the case for a majority of tournament organizations, but there are definitely going to be orgs that are going to fuck around with the invites that they're allowed to. So that all of a sudden you're going to get like a bunch of undeserving teams,
right?
And like a very critical tournaments, because everybody's going to be fighting for every fucking tournament. That's my assumption anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, this is something that I think we'll see unfold throughout this entire year, and I wouldn't even be surprised if like halfway through Valve came in and made some adjustments. Like Valve is like that, where they won't give a fuck if they already announced something. They'll just be like, no, fuck this. Well, So in that sense, that is definitely something I look forward to. But for now, I don't know. I still have, I still think there's lots of room for improvement, but at the same time, I'm glad that we have this system, and I'm glad that we have all these majors, right? Because this is definitely an improvement over
the last year, last few years, I guess.
Where you had to like read tea leaves or whatever in order to predict whether or not you'd get invited to TI.
Had to sacrifice a pig.
Yeah, exactly.
Read its entrails.
I mean, now they even told us how many teams are actually going to get invited to TI. They've never done that before. Before it was just like
ridiculous, right?
Maybe you'll get in. If we like you, you'll get in.
Yeah, whereas like I'm just predicting, I think they're gonna add more people this time. Like, you really like?
No, I think they're gonna decrease it this time. It's gonna be down to 4 teams, guys. I'm telling you.
I will say, like, if they do that though, it decreases the flexibility. But I don't think it's gonna be. Like while Dota 2 competition is rising, I don't think it's gonna get to the point where we have to add like 2 more slots by the end of the year.
Don't think so either. I think I mean. I like to say that too, and everybody else likes to say that too. Competition is getting better and better and more competitive every year. But like you pointed out, does it really? I mean, the team like Cloud9, could. I mean, obviously they didn't place too well at TI itself, but before that, they did still.
Everything before that, they were pretty fucking good, even though they have the exact same problems they've always had.
Yeah, and in a sense, I think there's a lot to be said that a lot of the teams that have, or a lot of the players that were good are just still good. So in a sense, there's not really that much changing, but there's just not a lot of new blood coming in. So I don't know. I think we'll still see the best 16 or 18 teams at TI next year, and ultimately that's all what we want, right? So,
yeah, pretty much the best teams.
Yeah. All right. That is, I believe. No. We have 2 more topics regarding this. Oh, I almost forgot. So one of the things is just a minor thing, and this is just to add to this discussion, seeding, which I mentioned earlier. ESL One Hamburg had a very questionable seeding during their event, during their qualifier for SEA. They placed Mineski at the bottom of the bracket, even though Mineski is by far the best team in SEA right now, and they have been for weeks. Like, there's no excuse like, you know how when the team doesn't get invited to qualifiers, the tournament organizer will be like, yeah, we had to. I mean, they obviously had to set the invitations like weeks in advance, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to do seeding weeks in advance, guys. You don't. I'm just saying. And even if you did, Mineski actually had a roster during TI and before TI. Like, this is the same roster. Like, as soon as all these players didn't make it to TI, they disbanded and they made Mineski as a team, and they fucking owned everybody in SEA. So there's no excuse for ASL here. I just wanted to point it out because it is one of the bullshit examples of why tournament organizers should either have automated seeding by Valve, or they would have to answer for their shit seeding. Like, why the hell did they do this?
I will give them I won't give them a complete pass. I'll give them a slight pass in the sense that you can't get seeding for Valve from qualifiers because I don't think Valve gives a fuck about qualifiers.
Right.
Like, this is a fucking team that the Valve crew is a team that let like a bunch of match fixers get all the way to the finals before they realized something was up. like, what do you want me to say? Like, I gave them credit for getting good seeds at majors, but they're also shit at qualifiers. Let's be real.
Yes, 100%. 100%. That's also one of the things why I'm not surprised that the qualifiers are currently like way messed up and like scheduled in a really fucked up way for teams. Like, Valve has never been good when it comes to this shit. So
they don't have a guy who cares because, like I said, it's a flat structure. So they're like, you just do what you want. Oh, so you want to schedule? No, fuck no, I don't want to schedule qualifiers. Get the fuck out of here. Like, this is basically what everybody's saying. Like, because that's a really boring job, by the way. But somebody has to do it. Somebody should do it. It's incredibly important, even if it's boring. Also, there was that weird rule that ESL? Like, there was some weird qualifier where EE stack went out because of time limit. Like, that's people got to get rid of that rule in qualifiers.
That was the PGL Open where they got disqualified because of time rating. And
like, I heard they'll change it, but like that's a ridiculously stupid or arcane rule.
2017. How does this rule even make it into any rule book anymore? Like, how do you unless you're literally copy pasting something from 2010? How does this still exist? Which they might legitimately be doing. Yes.
Yeah, like the only time this rule should come into effect is if you're running into like a DreamHack like open problem. And what I mean by like DreamHack open problem is there was this weird scenario in 2013 where 3 players in StarCraft 2 were stuck in a tiebreaker where A beat B, B beat C, and C beat A. And they ran the tiebreaker 3 or 4 times before they just had to coin flip somebody out because there was no more time left. Like, I can understand that, but this is a qualifier, man. You got plenty of time.
But yeah, that is one of the things I wanted to mention. And then the other thing was, and this is also slightly related to this, is the Fallout Gaming guys hosting a major in January. This was initially not really noticed by anybody because the initial sheet that was leaked was by CyberMat, right? It's like it was like a schedule leaked from CyberMat by Valve, and it had DreamHack listed, and we all assumed it was DreamHack Leipzig, but it actually wasn't a DreamHack event. It was always going to be Fallout Gaming. Fallout Gaming, for those of you who don't know, is they're also behind or part of them is also behind Galaxy Battles, where they have worked with the people behind Galaxy Battles, but also they've also organized a major All-Stars, one of the biggest screw-ups in Dota 2 event history. And yes, I'm saying this even knowing esports history, knowing full well there's been Gaming Paradise, and knowing full well there's been a YAEP event, which was a complete shit show. They literally had a booth on fire. They literally had cockroaches inside their booths. Odds are they used the fire to kill the cockroaches. Who knows? They paid the prize money out very late. They had to, look, when you know that Chinese teams have to complain publicly on social media, even on Western social media, I think, then you know shit's going down, right? And they literally didn't pay IG out for like an entire year or so, which is fucked up. So, a total screw up, and they get a major.
I'd like to point out something. I like to point out that Valve don't really have a consistent ruling about these things, because think about this. I think we could probably kill this LAN if we had sent Too Good there. We just sent Too Good there, that LAN would be killed. But because Too Good isn't there, all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, it's fine running booths with cockroaches. It's fine setting it on fire." Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yes.
Like, you can't work with an ass, but you can work with guys who set things on fire, who have cockroaches in their fucking booths. Yes. Like, come on, guys, come on. Like, I mean, that's why it's always been so weird I like if you're gonna do that, then I'm just gonna publicly criticize you for the rest of the time. If you let somebody, because if that's like the bar for how unacceptable things are. If there's anything below the bar, API keys, competitive integrity, like this fucking tournament organizer. I'm just gonna keep like hitting it because this is fucking ridiculous. Like that's your land you like. That's the fucking hill you stand on. Fuck it. If anybody's an ass like Too Good, if they make a porn joke, or if anybody lies about their compendium levels, that's it. You can do everything else in the world, but you can't do those two things. Like, come on, Valve.
Pretty much. And I mean, in a sense, you could even criticize the fact that Perfect World is getting so many events, right? They're getting, what, 3 events, I think?
How did Perfect World keep getting events? This is ridiculous.
They hosted the Shanghai shit show, literally. I mean, if you type in Shanghai, I'm pretty sure everybody that follows Dota 2 automatically gets shit show recommended, because that's, like, part of your interests, right? That's, like, Shanghai. Let me actually show Shanghai. All right, it doesn't. It shows me Shanghai weather. Whatever. It's not great weather. Let me tell you that. But I don't know. I feel like, I mean, in a sense, I think it's great that Valve has like an open circuit in a way where every tournament organizer can host these events, right? But at the same time, giving them not only the prize money but also the points validates those events, even though those events could be very bad and it could be very. I mean, imagine if Gaming Paradise had gone through. Right, and whoever came out of that shit show alive gets 750 points. Imagine, or WCA where they had to play in like the worst conditions, and like goddamn S4 was like sick as hell, and like it's I don't know.
Not a fan, but this is like it's like a literal Wild West out here, man. So
it is.
But like the other option is like here's the thing about developers. I don't know why, but they only have 2 choices. I'm not sure why this is the case. It's either complete freedom, do whatever the fuck you want, or I am the God Emperor. You must do what I say. Like, I don't understand why there can't be like a middle ground. Like, here's some basic rules, then you can do what you want. But no, it's like, no, do whatever the fuck you want. And then the other one's like, no, you literally have to do everything I want. Like, come on. Why is there no compromise?
I think part of that is actually because I think I would argue that Valve in a sense has tried the middle ground a little bit, with both Dota 2 and the CS:GO majors. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think they're too reactionary to like mistakes, like because of both Shanghai and Frankfurt. I mean, obviously Shanghai was a really bad event, but still, it was like just one event. Like it's one fuck up by one company. You can't condemn everybody else just because one company fucks up, right? But because of those 2 events. And also, ESL wasn't even that big of a mess in my opinion. But because of the feedback they've gotten from players and maybe something they experienced themselves, they thought it was such a bad event that they had to take over and be like, all right, it's PGL or nothing now. And then when that didn't work out, they're like, all right, free for all, whatever. I don't know. I feel like they're too reaction. I feel like they could have maybe slowed down a little bit and still be like, all right, we're going to try to be a bit more hands-on instead of going for this, like, all right, free for all. Everybody's just going to do their own shit. Like, I don't know. I feel like this is too much Wild West right now. I think there need to be more restrictions, more regulations, just to come back to that a little bit. But listen,
I'm fine with Wild West, but there's got to be like a bottom floor, man. Like, you got cockroaches and you're setting booths on fire. I feel like that's below the bottom floor. That's below the bottom floor.
Though, just to cut them some slack. They have worked with people to host Galaxy Battles. So Galaxy Battles was a great event, right?
And to cut them more slack, I guess I'm assuming NA teams are going to be there, and those have always been known as like dumpster fires. In this case, it might literally be a dumpster fire. So I can respect like the metaphor, so to speak. And maybe the Galaxy Battles will be guys will go fucking crazy. They'll be like, fuck it, we just need to kidnap everybody else, throw them into a fucking warehouse, and then we'll do the event. Like, maybe they'll do that, and it'll be a great event. I don't know.
I wonder though, and this is again very theoretical, very speculative, but would you, if you were Valve, and do you think they should? Let's say whatever the event that Fallout is going to host is going to be like a complete shit show. It's like a Shanghai major, possibly worse. Teams are going to get sick live on stage. They're going to inhale glue while they're playing their games.
Then Eternal Envy wins.
And then Eternal Envy wins. Would you still let them award those points? Or would you, like, I mean, at the same time, you don't really want to punish the players, right? But
you can't punish the players. What I'd probably do is I just say, you get the points, you get the reward money, but you're banned from making another event for like X amount of years. That's probably what I'd do.
All right.
But
Yeah.
I wouldn't let them do it to begin with. Like if I was gonna give them a major, I'd rather just give it to like the Galaxy Battle guys. Like just.
I mean,
them
I
by
don't know. I
themselves.
think
You know what I mean?
I think they are the same company. At
Oh,
this
they're the
stage.
same company.
I think they are, but like
For some reason, some people are good, some people are bad.
I
Like,
think
it's one of
I
those.
think the foundation of it is though the guys that fucked up the whole whatever it's called the major all stars, right?
Yeah.
So at the foundation, that fuck up is still is still rooted in that company. But I guess we shouldn't condemn them only for one mistake. But at the same time, they also basically ran away and hid.
Well, let's be fair though. We're only using the reasoning Valve does. Make one porn joke and then you ban them for the rest of their lives. Like, I'm just.
True.
I feel like if that's like the fucking bar, like that's why I'm so critical of this. Like, because that's the bar you've given us. So that's the bar I have to measure this by. Like, this is way worse than a porn joke. No offense to anybody at Valve, but this is way worse than a porn joke.
All right. I believe this is it for our Dota 2 section, though. But we still have plenty of stuff to talk about, and I mean, we have a lot of drama in CS:GO as well. So let's just hop right into it, Mr. kNg and Immortals. I feel like we don't even need to explain this anymore. I mean, if you look at the Dota 2 subreddit, even they are making fun jokes about it. But just to reiterate for those people that didn't really follow it all, so Immortals played at DreamHack Montreal. They made it into the semifinals. And the semifinals were played on the very same day as the finals, on the last day, right? And I believe people went... No. Actually, let's just stick to the very facts that everybody can see. They were late to the first semifinals. They still played it, though. And then they were late again for the finals. And because they were very late, I believe they were late by like 40 minutes or something.
Yeah.
They were awarded a def loss. And then for the first map. And then they still came around for the second map, which they lost, so it was a 1-0 final, effectively. The rumor, then FNS made a joke about, I mean, there was a rumor about, or people tweeted out that they missed the event because they went out drinking the night before, and then FNS made a joke. FNS from CLG made a joke. Oh, god damn it! I even lost to like 3 guys that were hungover, which I thought was hilarious. And the guy literally showed that he could take his own loss with like a little bit of a joke as well, right?
Yes.
But then kNg from Immortals responded like, "Prove it or I'll kill you." Literally, he's just like prove the fact that I went out drinking or I'll kill you. Which in itself, obviously, it's a Twitter thing, and then he even deleted it, I believe.
No, I think the other one's still up there though.
The other one's still up there, but I think the "Prove It or I'll Kill You" is down, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm not sure, but it doesn't really matter.
It really doesn't.
Everybody has screenshots.
Exactly. It's the internet. It's the internet. It's been up there for a while, that's sure. But then he also supposedly, this is something that Richard Lewis and Thorin discussed on their podcast by the numbers, that kNg was not only threatening him on the internet, but he legitimately went and looked for him in person and tried to do things to him.
We don't know what. But
we don't know what, but apparently he was looking for him in person, and he was very aggravated, and he had to be held back by people. But I think somebody from CLG clarified on Reddit that they weren't even there when it happened. Like, apparently he was looking for him at the hotel, but the CLG players weren't at the hotel anyway. They were out at dinner. So yeah, that happened.
Yeah. So if we want
sorry. Just to add to that, and now a week later, basically, or almost 2 weeks later, kNg has left Immortals. And supposedly, Henny and Lucas are looking to leave Immortals as well, to basically rejoin kNg.
Yeah, that's the crew. So how will I explain this? Okay, so for those who don't know, in the Krakow Major, because this is technically where the story starts, the Krakow Major, Immortals make it to the finals, and there are rumors, and basically a bunch of people, like, they won't substantiate it, but basically everybody says some of the guys from Immortals were out drinking that night. And think about this. You are in the World Championship. You're likely not going to get here again. And you go drink before the most important match of your life. Right? Like,
yes.
Okay. And then they lose it. This is the critical part. They lose it. And you think, if you were a normal human being, maybe you can't control your impulses. Maybe you're like, no, I gotta go fucking drink, whatever. But after you lose the most important match of your life, you would think something would change. Literally, nothing changed. Nothing was learned, and they did it again at DreamHack Montreal. And yeah, technically nobody can prove it in the sense that there was not a photo with all three of them drinking with a fucking newspaper and the clock in the background. But apparently, a bunch of people saw them, and specifically but because like CS:GO, like the players and the teams are like such a fraternity, they are trying to give them like a shadow of a doubt. Maybe they didn't drink, but they probably did drink. As far as everything I've heard, it sounds like they did drink, and that's like, fucking hell. You learn nothing, but you know what? Fair enough. It's your free time. You can do what you want, but it's completely unforgivable that they were late twice, like because you're holding up not just your team. Your own team, like your own teammates. You're holding up your other team. You're holding up the tournament, and you're holding up the fans. Like, that's completely unacceptable. And you did it twice in the semifinals and the finals. That's completely ridiculous. And you think to yourself, surely this will be the end of it. But no. Apparently, he read that fucking he read that Churchill quote where it's like, when you're in hell, just keep going. But what I think the point of the quote is you're supposed to keep going through the adversity. You're not supposed to keep like increasing it. So kNg's like, no, prove it or I'll kill you. And then like a bunch of people are basically trying to like threaten FNS, and FNS has got a bunch of death threats now. Typical Brazilian fans, the hardcore ones. And then you go, fuck. Here's actually the story, because there's like a podcast called Peaker's Advantage. It's a good one. It's a bunch of the CS:GO Canadian guys, and like they asked them about this, and basically what happened was like FNS was like sorry about it, because it's like, oh, I just thought it was a joke. I thought it was a funny joke. I didn't realize it was going to be so fucking serious. So he's asking, should I delete this? Like he's straight up asking them, should I delete this? What can I do? Should I apologize in man to man? Maybe that'll fix it. And then like one of the Immortals guys like, no, whatever you fucking do not meet kNg man to man. I was like, what the fuck? Okay. And apparently, like, they barely missed each other, and they had to restrain kNg, and they basically told FNS, do not meet kNg man to man, or things will go down terribly. Like, Jesus Christ. And then he basically said, I will never apologize. And he has never apologized.
Noah Winston, the CEO of Immortals, or the owner, is he actually both owner and CEO? I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said that both he would make an official statement regarding Immortals situation and like the CS:GO roster situation tomorrow. But also, when the things happen, I think he put out something very interesting. He's like, the right to represent Immortals has to be earned. Like, and that there needs to be a certain amount of honor and respect from these players, and I think that's actually very powerful. And I'm not as deep into the CS:GO scene as you are, but quite frankly, I think letting it, like, in terms of raw skill, I think making into the finals of the major was in itself a strong feat, but also potentially a fluke. But at the same time, it's still a very talented squad. Obviously, I mean, these players are very talented. So letting go of those players in an environment or at a time where maybe there's not a lot of talent right now that they could actually even pick up as a replacement or effective replacement, I don't know. But I don't know. I feel like that's a very bold thing to do. Not sticking to your own philosophy and not sticking to the players who may or may not be getting your success. So, yeah,
it's hard. I don't have a very good read on Noah Winston as a person. Never met him, obviously, but also because like he treads a very fine line. Like this is a line a majority of like the good organizations do, where you're either trying to get money, but you're also trying to have competitive success. Right. And this is especially important for like the NA orgs specifically, because they want both. And everybody wants both, but the NA orgs have just been a bit better at getting the money, and whereas like other orgs might be better at getting success, but they don't do as much getting the money to sustain that success, so to speak. So yeah, I do respect the decision, but it's kind of weird, I guess, because I feel like if you were going to cut kNg, you should have done it right after the entire thing. But apparently there's like an internal suspension, and that's how they were going to punish him. But then like they broke the internal suspension, so that's what.
Oh, right. I totally forgot about that as well. He got suspended, and then he plays a game. What?
Okay, so I'll explain this. It's even more ridiculous because they go in the qualifier, and this is like a video Richard Lewis just published today. But basically, what happened was kNg asked if he wanted to play in the qualifier. He asked his team, and he was talking to Steel. Steel's like, no, you can't play today because you've been internally suspended for X amount of times, for X amount of month. And then obviously the question is, how come nobody else in Immortals didn't tell him? But this is like a Facebook post from like FNX kNg himself. So maybe there's a lie in there. That can't really prove it one way or the other without the fucking picture and the fucking newspaper and the fucking clock, whatever the fuck you need. But basically he was told like Steel, you can't play. So they play with Zach, they lose, and then Henny and his brother Lucas tell him, no, you can play, don't worry about it. And then he plays against. Apparently, I'm not exactly sure how he got to play. It's not, but I guess it's not like they can physically restrain him because they're all playing online. And like, there's his entire problem. So he plays in the second game. They wreck CLG one more time. He wrecked CLG one more time. That broke the suspension, and then that's what got him kicked. And then now, like, these two Immortals players, Henny and Lucas, want out, right?
Right.
And because of the 3 out of 5 rule, that's what you get, keeps you in the major spot.
Yeah, that's the major spot.
But here's the thing: they will never get. I'm gonna go ahead and say that it's very unlikely they'll ever get a major org backing them again.
After this drama, hell no.
Yeah, there's no way that's gonna happen. As for Bolts and Steel, you actually have to respect them a lot.
Actually, wait. I thought so too, but Ritsu is currently signed for VG Gaming.
Okay, I guess China.
After that goddamn like stalking somebody's sister shit and.
Oh yeah, I can't believe he got away with that bullshit.
Like,
come on.
I like he is now. I mean, look. I think everybody makes mistakes, and everybody should be allowed redemption, right? As long as they're like very honest about their being sorry. But kNg doesn't look like he's sorry, and goddamn Ritsu certainly doesn't look like it.
I will never apologize for this. He literally said this. He has not retracted that a single time.
So yes, I think we can agree on the fact that kNg is not going to ever feel sorry for this. And the question now here is that, like, should he ever even, like, should Valve even tolerate this, like, whatever this
I'll go
I'm missing a word here. Should they allow this behavior basically by adding him to the major still?
No, I actually think this is one of the few times Valve should get involved, because we're not talking about like, listen, we're not. It's not like it's fucking competitive integrity where like I'm trying to force fucking Valve like a fucking horse to water. Like, please think about all these multiple teams owning. Think about the API key. Like things about this. This is literally somebody getting threatened with their life, and another guy looking for him in the hotel. Another guy, same guy, saying, "I will never apologize for this." If you actually care about your players, like straight up welfare, like you can't let this happen.
Exactly.
Like this is straight up physical danger. Like you can't let this go.
And imagine if, all right, CLG is not going to qualify for the major. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
But what if they did? Does Valve have to pay for a security detail for goddamn FNS? Like no, right? I mean, you're not.
They're gonna have to, because
I mean,
anybody. Here's the thing. I feel like here's the most ridiculous part about the Brazilian fans is like because nobody outside of Brazil really recognizes how dangerous it is. Like when you get a bunch of death threats that often, you're gonna think this is gonna be fucking dangerous. Yeah. And even if it's not the case, it just has to be one guy, because it doesn't have to be that many people that are serious about it. It just has to be one guy who's serious about it and will try to kill you.
Yeah, that's
why Hiko got bodyguards. That's why FNS is gonna get bodyguards, and that's why neither of them are likely to ever play in Brazil if they can get away with it. Like but it's like super ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's why definitely, like you said, Valve needs to step up, or needs to step in, rather.
Yeah, because Valve is the ultimate power here, and like if Valve doesn't care, then why should tournament organizers care?
Yeah,
like this is too much. Like this, like I've been serious about competitive integrity the entire time, but this is like a step above that. This is like somebody's life is getting threatened. You're just gonna stand there and do nothing. Like, come on, come the fuck on. You gotta do something here.
Yes, that is definitely something we agree on. But you know, I think we've talked sufficiently about this topic, so we can move on to the next one. Although I think this is one of the juiciest things one of the if there's like a top 5 drama for 2017, this is definitely on that list.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it takes top 1 just yet, but I mean the year is still young after all. Like for all we know, there's something worse gonna happen. Yeah.
VGJ stalks another person. No.
Look, his I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to talk about this. I'm going to tell you after the show. But
Okay.
Ritsu, it's a funny thing because he's such a talented player, but these why why are young people so, I don't know, why are they throwing away their careers? I don't know. But hey, if he's growing up now, I'm happy for him and I'm glad that he's stuck around. But I hope that he has grown up, right? I hope he's not just hiding, basically just waiting until he can like unleash his impulses again. All right, I'm making him sound like an animal. He's not.
Yeah, he's just a stalker.
He's just a stalker. All right, let's talk about Team Liquid and CS:GO. They performed quite admirably at ESL One New York. Although, I mean, I say quite admirably, even though they got kind of crushed in the finals. But up until then, they performed quite admirably. It almost made people in NA believe that CS:GO in NA was alive again.
Almost.
Tell me about Team Liquid. Why were they so strong at ESL New York?
Okay, so it starts obviously with ESG run. Like a week before this, they went to ESG Mackinac, and it's kind of like a half tournament, half vacation thing, kind of similar to the Summit, I guess, if you want to call it that.
No. Come on, it's much more of a vacation, right?
Yeah, much more vacation. It's fucking villa in the Greek island. What do you want me to say?
Every team had their own villa.
Yeah,
it's insane. It's crazy. Yeah, go on.
I do think it's a good idea if they want to like diversify types of tournaments, but that's off topic. But basically, what we find out at Liquid was like a few things happened. I wrote an article. It'll come out next week about it. But basically, here's what happened in the off season. Elige was playing like 11D Yu-Gi-Oh with a NA scene or some shit. Because here's literally what happened. Like, there were rumors that he wasn't going to join Liquid again, and then like he was literally not on the roster list for ESL New York. Think about that. Like when they announced it, like there's like 4 players and then 1 missing where Elige is supposed to be. Maybe this is some serious shit, right? And apparently, like, it was all a fucking game by Elige, because what he did was he's like, first off, I'm going to fuck over all of my competitors before this is all over. So it goes to iBuyPower. He's like, maybe I'll join you guys. I'm like, yeah, but no, really, I'm not going to join these guys. I'm just wasting your time. Then it goes to Immortals, like, man, Carajo, think about it. That Horvey guy, he isn't good. He's just disrespecting your skill. And then kNg, Henny, and Lucas, like, yeah, man, totally disrespecting my skill. And then Elige's like, you know what we should do? What should we do, Elige? We should make a team with FNX. But Elige, you don't speak Portuguese. And he just does like Carajo again. It's like, maybe you do speak Portuguese. And then there's a fucking rumor that those 5 are going to make a sack. And then the thing is, FNX is about to join Optic. But because of that rumor, he didn't join Optic, and then Elige just goes home. So he fucked over like 3 teams at once. Like that. First off, like that entire thing is a joke. But the whole point is like Liquid. He basically searched a bunch of his options and then decided Liquid was his best option. So at that point, like I think Elige was all into the team, and then like there are rumors that basically like he's helping the team prepare matches now, whereas before he was just playing this game. But now it's like helping them anti-strat. He's helping them like find out tendencies. It's like he's helping Nitro in-game lead. That's the other thing. Nitro is now in-game leader, and the thing about Nitro is he's always thought himself as a star. So the fact that he's now made himself in-game leader is like it shows a shift in his mentality. So he's basically accepted the fact, one of these 2 facts: either he's not a star, or he believes his team is so fucking good he doesn't need to be a star anymore.
Right.
And as far as I know, it's definitely the latter. I don't know if it's the former. And he's basically put himself in his most effective role, which is entry fragger. Because before he didn't want to be entry fragger because he didn't feel like that was a star role. But now that he believes in his team so much, he's willingly put himself into that role. At the same time, Stanislaw, who was supposed to be like the fucking savior of Liquid, like he like as in-game leader, he was good tactically speaking, but as a player, he did very little to contribute in the actual games. But basically, because Nitro decided to take up entry fragging, that forced Stanislaw back to lurking, which is where he was the best. Like that was where like Optic fucking won E-League, was when Stanislaw was lurking. So Stanislaw is returning to that, and he's, in terms of just pure flanking and pure positioning, it's amazing. Obviously, like he misses a shitload of shots, but that can be fixed over time. Just in terms of pure flanking, he's amazing, right? So that was like the those like combinations of factors made it so that Liquid have found the right configuration. So now their system is amazing. Their consistency across the board is amazing. They basically fixed JDM, where I don't think he's like perfect, but he's doing stuff in the server that's really helping the team, especially on the CT side. Twist is a amazing player. So you have 3 consistent stars. You have Stanislaw, who's amazing on flanks and like shit at shooting, but I think that'll be fixed eventually. I have Nitro in like his best role. So basically, what I'm basically saying is, not only is Team Liquid good, but Team Liquid has the right formula to do this consistently over time.
Do you think they will?
Yeah, I think they will. I think this is a legitimate elite side world championship team.
Ooh, damn. Even though they got
fucking smashed by FaZe, yes. Because think about this. FaZe isn't going to be at every tournament, and FaZe isn't going to be fucking mental like they did fucking mental every single time, I think. Think about this. Their worst player had like a 1.27 rating. That's like an MVP level rating for another player at a different tournament.
Yes.
Like, that's not going to happen every single time, I think. Like, that's fucking crazy.
It's definitely not fair to disregard Liquid's performance just because they got crushed by FaZe, because what FaZe put up there was just I wouldn't even call it a once in a lifetime performance, because odds are they're just going to do it again at like some other event. But
maybe they'll do it again, but like, it was a fucking crazy performance, right?
Yes.
Like that's fucking crazy. Whereas like Team Liquid, they beat SK once at Mykonos, they beat them again, and they beat Astralis. Like this is some real fucking shit we're seeing right now from Team Liquid. And the thing is, like, they have more to go. I think JDM can be better. I think Stanislaw can definitely be better. And I think Nitro will just grow as an in-game leader, and he'll grow as like an entry factor as he gets back to that role. So there's a lot to grow from here. And Twist himself is incredibly young. I think he's like 19 or 18 or 17, something really young. And he's like the star player of the team. And once he gets used to like the LAN experience, when he gets used to like the finals experience, because I think that's his first finals ever. I think he'll just get better over time.
It was his first grand final. He tweeted about it.
And then like Elijah is incredibly young too, and like so basically we're looking at like the future of CS:GO. I think Sponge J's basically said something on the cast like, we are looking at the greatest NA roster we've ever seen in history, and I don't think that's hyperbole. I think this could be the greatest NA roster we've ever seen in CS:GO.
Don't you think though that their growth could kind of be stunted by the fact that they're in NA? Like, I mean, there's no, I mean,
like, you mean like competition wise, like they don't have anybody to fight against?
They don't really have the competition to like, back up their to push them, right? I mean, there's definitely been examples of where teams don't necessarily need that. I mean, EG, for example, didn't need any competition to push themselves in Dota, for example, right? But it does not really help you. Right? It does help you if you consistently compete against the best, and you have to always be at your best as well, right?
Yeah, I think they can get over that for 2 reasons. I feel like, first off, at least in CS:GO, the idea of boot camping before major events is real. So I feel like what they should do is they should just work on their fundamental skills, and then work on the theory of the game. And then when they go to boot camp, that's when they level up their skill to like tournament peak level, and then they go to the tournament. So they can go to Europe for boot camps. At the same time, they've already created a guy. They already have the coach. The guy who already did this, he did it with SK, right? Because SK was in the same boat as Liquid is now when they won the double majors, and they did a similar thing. So I feel like of all the coaches they could have got, they got the guy who knows how to do this.
All right.
So I think it's possible. And like you said, like I will say like that PPD example is different from Team Liquid, because Team Liquid isn't technically run by a dictator, but the idea of the fact that it's the system, it's the team play that's winning them. That's the big difference between this Team Liquid and like old Cloud9, where like Cloud9 was winning off of their skill more than their team.
Right.
Whereas like EG, Dota2, this Team Liquid, I feel like they're winning more as a team, even though they have great players within that team.
All right. I'll be honest, I believe that is pretty much it. Yeah. Team Liquid was our last topic for the CS:GO department, and we have been talking for almost 2 hours at this point. So, I even said it at the very beginning. I'm aiming for an hour, and then we double it. So, typical. But I still very much enjoyed it. Thank you, Steven, for joining me as always. Anything you want to shout out? Maybe an article or a video. Didn't you do a video recently on what's it called? Oh no.
Not sure. Opportunity cost? I did that today, but
maybe. No, I don't think that is it. Whatever. check him out.
Okay.
I'll link his stuff anyway. Thanks for joining, and thank you guys for tuning in. We always have a lot of fun here. Hopefully, we'll get to do this more frequently. I say this every goddamn time. Every time I do this, I say, "Oh yeah, let's try and do next week again." But ultimately, it's very difficult, especially since it's like time zones and then more work. I'm also gonna get back into casting a little bit here and there, so.
Yeah.
We'll make it work. We'll definitely also get Power back in at some point. I've made him promise me that he'll definitely get back to us.
I need to know how Eternal Envy is surviving Sea,
yes. Hopefully we can get Pow on next time, and then we'll get some more SEA adventures on this podcast. But for now, this is me and Steven tuning out. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys later.
Later.